Today I'm going to walk you through my rig, and it's basically this messy corner. And we're going to speak more specifically about what are the three sounds I use currently, and it's basically each sound per channel of the Mesa Boogie Mark 5 amp, which is what I'm using. So we have three channels. I'm using all three, and I'm going to start with the high gain one, and then we're going to go to the overdrive one and to the clean one. And for this purpose, I'm using currently my Ibanez RG, and I have other guitars which work well for a high sound, but high gain sound. But this is the one I've been using quite a bit recently, and this sound that I have. Is pretty badass. But it's basically one that I've been using both for my live streams recently, just to have a sound that gives me a good flow for, showing the shreddy stuff, but also for practicing the shreddy stuff. But the tricky part here is to have a sound that gives you a lot of sustained compression, basically helps your playing, but without killing all the dynamics. So that's pretty much what this sound is about. And I'm not sure if you'd agree there are any dynamics left. I think there are, because these are low output pickups. These are bare knuckle Stormy Monday. It's their lowest output humbuckers. At least it was back in the days when I bought them. I've been a little bit careful with distortion and compression, and we're gonna go through that right now. Okay, that's a bit louder. So what I'm going to do now is disable all the distortion and compression. So that means I'm going to turn off my Tube Screamer TS808. I'm going to turn off the Wampler Ego. I'm going to turn off the MXR Dynacomp. Yep. I have two time-based effects. I can just remove them as well. So here's the dry sound coming from the amp. So, butterflies in your butthole. Man, I think that's a compliment, but I'm not completely sure. So anyhow, here's the clean sound, or the amp sound. And the first thing you might notice is that this is pretty low gain, considering it's coming from the high gain channel on the Mark 5 amp. And I'm using the Mark IV mode, so the famous John Petrucci voicing. And here's the thing. I've set it up so that it's... this is hard to describe. You're gonna get into those weird internet forum description words. But the thing is, this sound is to me is a perfect balance between having that warmth and width, and also being focused and bright enough so that it's not gonna go completely just a mess when you add distortion on top of it. So it seems that this specific sound works well for adding distortion on top of it, and we're gonna see what impact that has on this basic sound. But first of all, I do have the equalizer engaged on the amp, and this is important because it makes a huge difference. So if we try without the EQ, I'm gonna raise the volume a bit more. And then it sounds a bit thin. With the EQ, you can hear the width it adds. Without the EQ, with the EQ. Now the EQ, to be fair, also gives me a volume boost. So that has to be somewhat factored into the sound difference you're hearing. But here's the first thing which I do a little bit differently here. I don't use the famous V-shaped EQ. And if you don't know what that means, V basically means you've scooped out the middle frequencies, right? Because a V goes down in the middle, right? So a V would go up here and then down and then up. But my V is a bit, what's the word? Förskjuten in Swedish. It's a bit pushed to the right. So the V happens on the higher mids. So it's on 22 kilohertz, I guess it would be 2.2. Ah, man, I don't know. So this is 2000 hertz, I think. Sorry. But this is the high mid-range, basically. And what that does, it basically cuts out the harshness, okay? So that's the key, I think, for a smooth lead sound. And that's how I got the sound I spoke about in the beginning, which is kind of wide and warm enough, but still focused. The focus comes from the specific voicing on this amp. And then I'm adding the EQ to add warmth and a bit of that V shape, which is a bit pushed to the right. So that's what you're hearing here. Bit of Led Zeppelin there. I don't know. That works okay. So not your Led Zeppelin or SRV kind of sound here, but that's not what I was going for. That's just because you guys wanted it right now. So here is the basic sound. I'm going to show you some more specifics to this amp, namely the Variac mode, which I'm using for high gain now. But I'm first going to add all the pedals so you can hear what a difference they make. First of all, I'm just going to add the time-based effect. So I'm going to turn on the digital delay. Just gives me one repetition. And a quick repetition. Can you hear it? I'm going to raise the volume some more. Now that's important because I add reverb on top. So if you have lots of delay repetitions and reverb on top of that, you're going to get this amazing mush of sound, which basically sounds horrible. But now I'm going to add the reverb. It's pretty big. It's bordering too much, but I think it works. Now again, if I had lots of delay repetitions with reverb on top, it would just be that's the pro way to describe the sound. Okay, so we have the time-based effect. I'm going to compare without it so you can hear how the dry, no time-based effect sound. Nothing there afterwards, right? No tail. There's nothing coming when I stop playing. Now you can listen to the tail. Okay? Yngwie! Just wait till we turn on the distortion, then we're going to do some Yngwie. So let's do exactly that. Let's start turning on the distortion. The first thing I use for this high gain sound is the TS-808, the Tube Screamer. So here's the deal. I don't always like the Tube Screamer for high gains lead sounds, only when I want some crunch and some extra, like, mid-range definition. And it makes sense to add that because I've removed a lot of mid-range as I showed you in the EQ section here. Also, the Tube Screamer is not quite as dynamic as, for example, the full-tone OCD. So it's for a specific purpose. But here I do want like a smooth lead sound, which is kind of sacrificing some dynamics for playability. So I will engage the Tube Screamer. So there it is, the Tube Screamer. It doesn't make a huge difference yet. It doesn't make a huge difference yet. It's just a little bit more pushed. Without it. With it. Okay, now let's add the Dynacomp, which is a compressor, but I have set it to very mild compression. You can see this knob is like at, what would that be, 10 o'clock. And the big thing here is the boost. I'm using this as a fairly pure, well, not pure, but it's a booster. So now you can hear I have more sustain all of a sudden. So it's now easier to do the English stuff, which you guys requested. But I'm gonna make it even easier on me. And I'm gonna add the Ego compressor, which is a very cool compressor. It can do your standard compression, but it can also carefully compress just to add mojo, warmth, and actually playability to your sound. And that's exactly what this one does now. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it's very notable when you're playing. Without it, with it, so I don't know if you can tell, but what this does is it adds more warmth, it adds more sustain. Oh, do I have a bad hair day? Adds more sustain, and it makes it a little bit easier to play, but I don't think it sacrifices the dynamics, and that's really key here. And of course, one big important component of this compressor is the fact that there's a blend knob, which is basically allowing you to add parallel compression. That's a fancy word, but it's basically what you're doing in your DAW. When you're adding compression, a lot of times you don't just smack on the compressor and compress the whole signal. You basically compress just half of the signal to leave some of the transients, some of the peaks in the sound. You don't want to cut it all away. You don't want to flatten the sound. You just want the extra mojo and just the extra lift which a compressor can give you. So I think what we can do now you have the whole sound, but I'm going to give you some more examples just so you can see what components make up this sound. And there are some things we haven't discussed on the amp yet, which I'm going to speak about. The first one is probably this power attenuator, which needs to be discussed. So what this does is, this is basically connected between the power amp and the speaker. So it means I can lower the signal sent to the speaker. And that means I can push the amp really hard without getting ear-piercing volumes here. This is extremely important, and I think this amp should actually come with one of these built in, simply because to get this sound from the channel, it's extremely important to balance the gain and the master output. So that's going to give you more or less power amp saturation. And the amount has a huge impact on the voicing, on the sound you're getting from the amp. So when I turn up the master, it gets insanely loud unless I can also compensate by turning down the volume on the attenuator. So this is critical for the sound. Cool, guys. I can see Robin, what's up? I see a lot of comments there. That's awesome. I'm just going to plow through the whole sound thing, and then we can cover questions and all that good stuff. So, I'm using the 10 watt mode, which has a much more creamy and less dynamic, but more smooth flowing character. If I turn it up, it gets loud, but it also gets brighter, and I want the kind of warmer, a bit fatter kind of tone. That's what the 10 watt gives me. And even more importantly for this sound I've found is the variac mode. So I have a switch here where I can turn the amp to full power or to variac mode. So if I turn it to full power, it sounds more focused and brighter. This is awesome for rhythm and stuff like that. Or just like a more bluesy or a sound that cuts through a bit better. Whereas the variac mode is, Mesa Boogie describes it as elastic. I guess that's true as well. It's just warmer, and it has totally different vibe. So this is variac, and this is full power. This is variac again, and this is full power again. It's a little bit hard to hear, of course, through my phone, through the internet and all that, but hopefully you can grasp there's a difference. A lot of these things also have a major impact in the way the amp responds. And I know that sounds like bull, right? It sounds like, yeah, he's just being a cork sniffer or something. But that's the main reason I stopped playing my Kemper, or not play as much, and totally just transitioned to analog. Because the attack and the feel when playing, if that sounds flat or digital or non-natural, I'd rather be playing on an acoustic guitar or an unamplified electric guitar. And that's what I found myself doing. I had been practicing on the Kemper for years and years, and after a while it's like, no, I prefer not playing with an amp. And I didn't think more about it, I just thought, well, I don't like being amplified. So I played for 1 year without an amp, and then I realized, but you know, my technique is revolves around distortion and stuff like that. Maybe I should try playing with an amp again. And then I realized that it's the digital stuff that I didn't like. So that's my story. I mean, the Kemper is awesome, but it doesn't respond nearly the same way as an analog amp. So that's for the high gain sound. Now I would like to move on to the overdrive channel, and I'm gonna switch gear just because basically what I have got going, the high gain, I use it for high gain practicing and these live streams. We're just speaking about the last couple of weeks maybe, because I change that all the time. So this is just a snapshot of the sound that I'm using currently. But the overdrive channel I'm using for a track I'm recording, an Tweed that I'm gonna hopefully finish. I took a little break because I started doing all these live streams, but hopefully I'm gonna get back to finishing that. And that's the sound you're soon gonna be hearing from the overdrive channel. So for this purpose, I'm gonna grab my Les Paul Studio Junior, which is a lovely guitar. It's probably my best sounding guitar, I would say. And the sound I'm going for now, wait a minute. So this sound is very different. It's a bit, has like vintage rock or punky or maybe almost like indie pop sounds. So as you can hear, it has less distortion. It's more responsive. It's more rock and roll, right? So this is a pretty cool sound. I like it, but it's very. I think it's very different from the high gain stuff. And I'm just gonna. I don't use the variac mode here. I use the 45 watt mode, and as you could tell, I don't know if you could tell, but I immediately had to turn down the speaker level through the power attenuator, and that is because this sound uses a lot more gain from the power amp, or power amp tube, power amp distortion, whatever, and it's really what this sound is about. You're hearing kind of power amp distortion. It doesn't distort as much. It's cleaner, but it has a sparkle around it. And if I had kept the setting of the previous sound, which used much less of the power amp, it would have been much louder. So again, this is why I need this power attenuator, because some sounds use a lot of power amp gain and distortion, and those sounds get very loud, and I just want to be practicing recording. I don't want to, you know, disturb my neighbors or something. So that's why this as soon as I switched to the overdrive channel, it got really loud, and through the power attenuator, I could get a much more reasonable sound level. I still get the juice coming from the power amp, just not as loud in my ears. But when I record this, I have the choice of either turning it up again and miking it if I want to, but I just use a line out and then I use a speaker emulator. I think that works really well. So, this is hopefully you can hear it's a very different sound, that you can rewind the video and compare. Now, I use this for rhythm, but I think I could quite easily turn it into a lead sound simply by turning up the time-based effect, so the reverb. And I intend to use the same sound for rhythm and lead. I've already recorded the rhythm part, it's just the lead that's left. So it's a little bit, I think it sounds a little bit thin now, but I think this is going to help me cut through the mix, or I'm pretty sure it will. Sometimes when you're practicing, you have the comfort of dialing in a fatter sound, which wouldn't work as well in a mix. But this sound is really configured to work in a mix, and I know that it does because I've already used this sound for the rhythm tracks of the song I'm working on. But I could probably experiment some more, and maybe I will. I could try the variac mode and see if that gives me a more of a creamy lead sound. It does, but it also cuts away some high end, so I'm not sure I would use that. I also have the option of tweaking the full tone OCD, which I haven't spoken that much about, but this sound actually uses the full tone rather than the tube screamer. And the reason is because the full tone OCD has a more natural amp-like distortion. It's not your carpet kind of distortion that flattens things. It can remain very dynamic even at higher gain levels. And as I said, this sound is really like a power amp gain thing where you still hear pretty good string definition, you hear the chords, it's not your overwhelming distortion. So it made sense to choose a full tone OCD to achieve that. 5 minutes alone. No, 5 minutes alone. Isn't it like, oh, no sound coming. I don't remember it. I hear you, pretty cool. So that's it for the overdrive channel. Now I'd like to switch completely to another sound, and I'm gonna grab my Strat, and we're gonna play the clean channel, which to my ears sounds totally different. And that's the cool thing with this amp. I think it nails a lot of those sounds just in the same box. So let's try that. I'm gonna get rid of this guitar. Okay, so I grabbed my Strat. This is an S-style guitar, right? It's not really a Strat. It's a vintage Higain V6. I've tweaked it extensively. I've done a light scallop on it. I've switched the pickups to bare knuckle Apache, which is probably right now my favorite single coil pickups. And I even have a whole bunch of push pulls, which I typically do use quite a bit on this guitar, but for this sound, there was no need. But basically makes it a more dynamic guitar if I want to play high gain with it. But now I'm going to show you the low gain sound, so it won't be needed. Let's switch channel to the clean channel, and let's just turn everything off. So no pedals at all. Maybe a little bit of delay, but no distortion, no compression. Okay, so here I want more I want the headroom to be heard. I want more dynamic, so I'm gonna see if I see, that was a little bit too much. course, I'm a crappy clean guitarist, so I'm gonna have to work a little bit on that, but I'm sure you can agree the sound is very different, right? So I'm no expert here, but I think this is a pretty good take on like a Vox amp, like a small Vox AC something, like a British amp. That's what it sounds like to me. It's... Oh, sorry. I forgot to disable the compression. That's why I wasn't really happy with the sound. Let's do everything from the beginning now. This is the sound I intended to show you. Yeah, here we have it. So just forget the last 5 minutes of the tape, if you can. Here is the sound without any compression. The Dynacomp, the MXR Dynacomp, the red pedal there, is a bit crappy, I think, because it doesn't have a LED on it. So it's very hard to tell if it's engaged or not. And it was engaged, but now I've turned everything off. So let's try it again. So you can hear, this is lovely. This is a totally different sound, and you can't, you know, it's very hard to get that, I think, on the same amp. I mean, it's amazing I could get the Higain stuff and then this. So very cool. Now, again, I'm going to repeat, now I have no compression, no distortion. When I had the booster and a little bit of compressor engaged by mistake, it was a totally different sound. So this is really just the amp you're hearing. I don't even have the EQ engaged, but I do have the 90-watt mode, so this is loud. I do have the bold switch engaged, which gives a bit of a brighter, more presence and just more of all frequencies. But nothing on the floor here except a little bit of delay. But I am going to turn on the reverb now because I think that can be kind of cool. Let's see. Let's see if I can just not be crappy. There you have it. I think this sound is amazing, and I think the flexibility is awesome, which is why I've had this amp for a long time, and I just feel like I know nothing about it. And I think one thing I recently discovered, like a few months, is just you have these 3 channels, right? But on each channel, you can balance the gain and the master. And that is critical because each balance basically gives you like a new voicing. So the amount of possibilities is just crazy, because if you find a setting that works really well, like mid-range, mids and treble and bass, and it's like, yeah, I found the sweet spot now. You think you found the sweet spot on that channel. It's like, yeah, I know how to get it. But then you change the balance between power, amp, and gain, and that sweet spot no longer works. That means there's a new sweet spot to find. So when I realized that, I just realized that, okay, I don't think I'm going to be needing any new amps for a while. So I'm still experimenting with this, but this is just very, very good. So what I'm going to do now, because I have this clean sound dialed in, I'm going to turn off the reverb, and I'm going to show you how well the different pickup positions are reflected with a clean tone. Now, I was using the position 2, so the in-between here. Sounds a little bit funky to me. Now, if we use the first position, so the bridge and mic. So again, compare with what I had before, the in-between position. This sounds a bit more naturally compressed, whereas the bridge sounds open and bright, and it's pretty good for... If I wanted something like that, I think that could work. Now we're gonna do the middle pickup, which is funky to me as well. So if I wanted a funky sound, but not as warm as the previous funky in-between sound, I would go for this. Now again, if I compare with the in-between, sounds funky as well, but warmer. So this totally depends on where you want your guitar to sit. If it's in a busy mix and you want to be funky, then I would go for the middle position. But if you're doing something, I don't know, for social media, and you have the option of really tweaking the bass and drums so it doesn't interfere with your guitar, then you can have a warmer sound. And again, I would use the in-between position. Okay, so finally, or not finally, but now we have position number 1, 2, 3, 4. So this in-between mode. This is now very warm. It's almost like it's lacking something, so I would use that. I would probably use it as a, maybe if you're just playing a cappella or something. And then finally, the neck position, which does get a little bit of the brightness back, but it's also even warmer, I would say. That's perfect for, like, if you have a break in a song and the dynamics go down, and maybe you've been playing rhythm, like, and then the dynamics go down, and you want to do your, like, what's it called, the Stevie Ray ballad song, I always forget. So that's nice. But we haven't even touched upon the push-pull switches. So I'm going to show you those because they are pretty cool. And I'm going to start with the neck-on position. So if I pull this knob, it means the neck pickup is always on. And that gives me the option to combine this pickup with this pickup, which you cannot do on a regular S-style guitar. So let's try it. I love this sound. So this is a bit like a phasey kind of sound, a little bit. It's very bright, and it doesn't have a lot of low frequencies. It's kind of feels like those are phased out somehow. Very nice. I have an even cooler option. I can now opt for this, the number 2 position. So I'm using these 2 pickups in between mode, but I also have this neck on push-pull engage, which gives me all 3 pickups at once. So let's try it. And I messed up, but you still hear. I love it. But you're asking a shredder to play clean here. That's hard for me. So here you go. This is a pretty interesting sound. So if I turn off the neck on, doesn't sound quite as interesting. I turn it on. So it's a very rich sound. That's just the neck on. Now what I can do is actually, I can also have like a fake humbucker mode, and it's these 2 in series. So if I pull this one up, I get these 2 in series, so they're acting a little bit like a humbucker. So if you compare just the bridge and then we get. It does add more body. It also adds less definition, but this, I know from experience that this sound actually tackles high gain better. So I tend to use this if I, for some reason, need to use this guitar with high gain. It actually works pretty well with this switch engage. Thank you for saying I'm an OG guitarist. Means the world. Thanks a lot. So, and the good thing is I can actually, I think, engage these two even if I'm in the neck position. So if I just play the neck position, and then I pull this one up, I hear zero difference, so I think I was wrong. Okay, so let's not speak about that. Let's speak about this one, the final switch. Now this one isn't as dramatic, it's just disabling the treble bleed which I've installed. So when I engage this switch, it's gonna remove some top end. It's pretty subtle, but if I don't engage it, then I can turn down the volume and I get to keep some treble there. That's what the treble bleed mode modification does. It allows you to turn down the volume and still have treble left. Now, if I don't like that, if I want to turn down the volume and also get a warmer sound and get rid of the treble, then all I have to do is pull the switch and turn down, and you can hear the treble is gone now, as well as the volume. If I engage it, I get much more treble. That's what the treble bleed does. It's not super useful on a clean sound. It's more of a high gain thing, right? But I think I've demonstrated many options that I have at my disposal when, when using this rig, and also when, playing with you guys doing these live streams. So I hope you found it helpful. I know I haven't been very interactive, but it seems you guys have been watching still, and I'm happy about that. Play Wonderwall. Maybe find. I mean, we should get a good Smells Like Teen Spirit sound, I think, out of this. I don't know. Pretty close. I think some compression there could help. Whoa, and I messed up. I think I'm out of tune as well. Oh, man. Lots of good tones to be had of this clean sound, and I think if you're going for this without the whole Mesa Boogie thing, I think maybe you would be looking at like a Vox amp, and maybe a traditional Strat would take you where I am now. To me, this is new. I'm exploring this stuff. I don't think my ears have been able to hear quite the difference between these things. But now with the right tone, it's like, yeah, what an impact all these things have on the guitar. It's pretty cool. Story behind the sleeve. So good question. It's just me. It helps me be warmed up, and when I'm doing this kind of rig walkthrough, it's especially important because my back is constantly curved, and when you're on the wrong side of 40 and you don't have good posture and you try to play something fancy, you run a major risk of injuring yourself. And since I did that even when I was young and on the right side of 40, I'm scared to death of doing it now. And this kind of helps me be warmed up so that I don't, sometimes I've done these and I've skipped a sleeve and I'm tweaking something. I go down and I go up, I try to play something, and then I start to feel strain and I keep doing it. And then, the strain can persist throughout the whole day. And that's a clear sign that I did something wrong to my body. Breed. Do 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 do. I think that. I don't remember which fret it was on. Not like that, maybe. No, I've never used a blues driver. So there are a bunch of classical guitar pedals that I would like to get at some point. So the blues driver, the governor, the rat pedal, there's a whole bunch of them I'd like to try. The thing is, this setup is so flexible, so I could keep on experimenting for a few years without needing any of those. But I'd love to have them at some point. Oh, the circuit is kind of similar to Brian May's Red Special. That's cool. Oh yeah, his guitar has lots of different stuff to choose from. That's true. Yeah, I do have an EQ pedal. It's this one, the MXR 10-band EQ. Or can you even see that? There it is, sorry. There. But the thing is, it's really noisy, I find, when I add it with all the other pedals. And the built-in EQ pedal does the job for me. Where is it? There it is. So I've tried it a whole bunch, but it's just, I have enough control without it, actually. But I think maybe if I didn't have if I had a guitar with effect loop, but without an EQ, then I would definitely just use my own EQ in the effect loop. But I think the built-in one is much less noisy and gives me more control. There is a bit of grounding buzz. If I remove the noise suppressor, that's the basic sound you're hearing. Gets a little bit better if I use the in-between position, the noise canceling, but you still have this sound. Quite noisy, right? But if I enable the noise suppressor, it's gone. And it's the noise suppressor is connected via like the 4-cable method, and what that means, it simply checks if there's a signal coming in, and if there isn't, it can totally block the loop. So that means I don't know how to say it. It just means it's very effective at noise muting. I don't know Little Wing, but you can hear it's nice that you can get that kind of clean twang sound here. It's really lovely. I like it a lot, and I've been working a lot on that for the last couple of years, but I'm still not at the point where I can really use it. You know, a lot of the shreddy or improv stuff, I can improvise. I can do that more freely while speaking to you guys, whereas this I really have to try to focus to get it right. So right now, you're not hearing anything, any pedal except for the Wampler. Yeah. So now, you don't even have the Wampler on, so no compression at all. So if you want to get a better shot of the pedal board, that's it. If you want me to explain what this is, you can just watch the replay of this video where I've gone through the main components of my sound. Now I'm just gonna explain what the different pedals are. This is a chromatic tuner. It's always connected and I can always tune by Boss. And this is a noise suppressor. Without it, with it. So it cuts away some noise. Without it, with it. Here's a tube screamer, which I used for the first Higain sound that I showed you, TS808. And this is a full tone OCD, which I use for the lower, more organic kind of Higain sound. This is a Wampler Ego, which I've used throughout. It's a very cool way to add subtle compression, but compression that doesn't really do typical compression. It just helps you elevate the sound subtly. You can use it any way you want. It's a very flexible pedal. And then we have a Dynacomp, which is not at all as flexible, but it's also awesome because it's probably the best boost I have. It's really good boost, can boost both the clean sound and the high gain sound. It can give you like push, high gain, nice high gain push, but also brightness in your clean sound. So it's awesome, and you can dial in like classic country compression, but I never do that. So I just use the sensitivity or the compression knob very lightly. Then we have the Strymon Big Sky, which I probably should explore a bit more. I still think the Kemper has better reverb than this one, so I'm constantly thinking about maybe just keep the Kemper, or keep using the Kemper, but only for reverb. But that would make the rig so complicated, so I prefer this one. This is an old DD3 Boss Digital delay. I just use it for simple, like a slapback delay, nothing fancy. And then here's a TC Electronic flashback delay, which I never use for delay. I only use it for looping, but I haven't done that in a while, so maybe that's what I should do now. Let's see if it works. It does. So I could probably dial in some nice loop there if I had the skills. Let's do something in E major. 3, 4, and now I can really make use of the push-pull here. This is the humbucker mode. I'm so crappy at that thing. But that's what I use the TC Electronic for. And those are, yeah, I have a few more pedals I should probably speak about, but I don't use them currently. This is a simple A and B switch, which allows me to basically go between two different amps, or as in this case, I've used it for sending a duplicate single, one to the computer when recording and one to the amp. But I don't use that setup currently. And then we have the MXR 10-band compression, which I don't use either currently because it's a bit noisy, and I find that the onboard EQ here does a much better job, or the built-in EQ to the amp. Let's see what you guys are saying. Får jag be mina alltid återvända muted legatos? Oh man. So now I'm going to show you, hopefully, that with these push-pulls, the Strat actually works for high gain. I hope I'm not going to be proven wrong. Pretty decent, I think, considering this is a true single coil Strat. Strat. It's a true single coil Strat. Basically, I'm answering the request of doing muted legato now, and I didn't want to switch guitars. I kept this guitar, and I think it works. I can turn down the tone knob a little bit maybe, it's a little bit bright. You can turn down the speaker level here via the power attenuator. You have to consider that this is not an Yngwie style guitar. He uses like fake single coils. He uses stacked humbuckers. I don't. These are real low output pickups, and I'm able to get a high gain sound with them, even I think without having the push-pull engage. That's right. Not a whole lot of gain there. But with the push-pull, I get this fake kind of humbucker thing using 2 true single coils, and we get so that's interesting. Again, this is like a true Stratocaster. It's not like a hot Strat, and I can still do high gain with it, or decently. I mean, you can hear how it sounds. Wickbox, this is a scalloped guitar, but very light scalloped. I have 3 other scalloped guitars as well, but I was really scared of affecting the sound of this guitar, so I just did a very light scallop. I think I did affect the sound a little bit anyway, but very, very lightly. Black Crow Busker, you're definitely, you should definitely book a few lessons with me. You can just search for my name on Google and you're gonna find my site. It would be an honor, by the way. Okay, so some advice for guitar. I'm a drop A guy. I don't have any good advice for drop tuning because I barely use it. I usually tell people to go get like a Strat style guitar, like a cheap knockoff, because they can be pretty good. This is not your cheapest knockoff, but it's still a knockoff, and I think it's amazing. Vintage Icon V6. I've done some tweaks to it and plays awesome. But you can get cheap S-style guitars, and you can, if you want to, put in like a high, like we discussed, like a fake single coil, like a mini humbucker, and you're gonna be able to play metal as well. But as I demonstrated here, you can get high gain even with the Strats. So loopers are fun. Oh, Black Crow Busker. Oh, so what is that Rocktron Taboo artist? Is that a pedal? Sorry, I'm really crappy sports guy. I like watching football, but I don't know the players. I've heard about Messi and Ronaldo, but I don't know what the difference is. One comes with cream. I don't know. Hey there, Azamillion. So cool. Thank you, man. Christopher and Rochelle, what's up? I got a guitar from Temu. It's great. Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to try that as well. Just try lots of cheap guitars and see how they work. And it's so cool because when you buy a cheaper guitar, you're not as scared of modifying it, and you can learn a lot from modding a guitar, and then you can make your, more expensive guitar, whatever, you can make that one even better when you're comfortable making changes to the guitar. And I've done that a whole bunch of my guitars. So what string gauge? I use 09 to 46 on this guitar, and sometimes the standard 09 to 42. So 09. But at some point I'd like to try 08s. I just haven't gotten to it. Cool. TC Electronic Hall of Fame. Yeah, I can imagine it's good, yeah. Can I play something? So I think we can safely say that this is probably the sound of the day, or the one I like the most. Maybe try the position 2 instead. I'm a really crappy bass guitarist. I just play for my own recordings. I wouldn't be able to show you anything cool. And I don't understand much about bass, but for some mysterious reason, it seems I'm able to make it work in my mixes, but that's about it. For me, the big thing was understanding how to mix the low range, obviously, of a bass guitar, because it turns out you want some low range, which is around 250, but you definitely want much of below 100. And understanding that as a guitarist, where you typically just cut away everything below 150 is weird stuff to me. So yeah, it took me some time to figure it out, but with a bit of, listening, reference listening, it works. You dog, is that me? Am I talking? So if we wanted a little bit more pushed for that kind of stuff, we can try maybe... And that's what I said. Now I just engaged the MXR Dynacomp, and from the clean tone, I was able to get that boost, basically pushing the amp, the Vox style voicing on this Mesa Boog amp, to break up a little bit. So the MXR Dynacomp helps me go from a twangy, funky sound to a cranked lead sound. So I did that just by engaging this red pedal. So, that's what a booster can do. It can sort of just help you push your tube amp. So it's a nice thing to have. I've been playing for 30 years. Thank you so much for asking. So guys, I'm going to have to end this stream soon, but this has been a very cool session. And let me know if you like this kind of content where I go through some of my gear. I don't always have to sit and shred and speak about arpeggios, we can speak about other things as well. But it helps me if you guys request stuff, because it just makes it easier for me to prioritize and understand what you guys want. So, if you want to request stuff, you can just write it in the comments, and I'll see them and I'll get back to you. That would be awesome. But if not, I'll keep on going, and I will probably keep on doing these European morning jams. So if you want more of me, then you're going to find me around this time pretty much on a daily basis here on my YouTube channel. Okay, guys, so thanks so much for tuning in. It's been awesome chatting with you guys. And until next time, practice, practice, practice. You've been wonderful, and I've been Christopher Dahl. See ya. Cheers.